You're listening to Kayak Flyer with your host, Sean. Tonight, we're brought to you by Tennessee Trailers, OutdoorAdventureTrailers.com. Simply the best way to get your kayak to and from the water. Bajuco Flats Fly Co. Simply the best custom-made fly rods on the market, always built to order just the way you want it. Find Bajuco Flats Fly Co. on Instagram and Facebook. StoneflyNets.com, made 100% in the great state of Arkansas with your choice of woods or burls. Stonefly Nets can even be customized for that favorite fisher person in your life. Check out StoneflyNets.com for details. CutthroatFurledLeaders.com, the only leaders that I fish with. Cutthroat Furled Leaders are excellent for saltwater, freshwater, trout, bass, you name it, you can catch it with a Cutthroat Furled Leader. Head to CutthroatFurledLeaders.com, promo code Kayak to save 15%. Guys, thanks for tuning in to Kayak Flyer. You know, Adam, it seems like we just did this yesterday. The podcast is so much fun. I'm going to tell you what, I love every minute of it. Having you back on the show is so great. I was floundering like a beached whale without you.
Yeah, just here to save the day, brother.
That's what you do, man. You just put on that cape and you save the day. You're the real hero of the show, man. You're the real hero.
That's exactly right, yeah.
And you worked some of your magic again this week, and you got us an awesome guest. Would you like to introduce him?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm super pumped to have. We've got Van Hendrickson with us tonight. Van, you run the Average Joe's Fishing Club, which is a group on Facebook that obviously promotes fishing. A lot of it's here in the Midwest where, obviously I'm located, Sean's located. A lot of our listeners and viewers are too, but I'm sure that the net, if you will, the casting net of Average Joe's goes further than that. And we're super pumped to have you on. So welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, you bet. So I stumbled across the page, obviously via Facebook, and a lot of those fishing groups out there through social media, they're nowhere near where I am typically, but then you find yourself associated with people all over the country. But This one's right here in my backyard. It's right here in Kansas City, which is super cool. And one of my longest friends, who I've known for over 30 years, Wes, helped you with this right from the onset. He's been a part of that.
Yeah, and actually, him and I just became roommates back in June too. But when I, thought about the Average Joe's thing, and I don't know if you ever saw the movie Dodgeball or not, but that's kind of where I got the idea with Average Joe's Gymnasium.
Yes.
But came up with the 5 F's of fishing instead of the 5 D's of dodgeball, and fishing, family, friends, fun, and fishing, because they mentioned Dodge twice, and so
that's
just
awesome.
it'll play on that, but yeah. But Wesley, Drew Barnaby, who's local, Clayton Westgate, we all just decided that we were gonna do this, and we thought maybe we might have a little bit of a Kansas City following with all of our fishing buddies. Figured maybe 100, 200 people maybe, but yeah, we're getting ready to hit 2,500 now, and about I'm wanting to say 11, 12, 13 different countries.
Oh my gosh.
You're bigger than this podcast.
Well, that doesn't take much though, Van. Don't even let him pretend to tell you otherwise.
Hey, we may pick up a few new listeners now.
Yeah. We'll actually be doing a giveaway for the 2,500 as soon as we hit it. We've already got I put in some stuff even out of my own stash, and had some stuff for some other people, and Bass Pro Shops here in Olathe, they've been on board with us the whole time.
Cool.
Kenny and Gary Robinson kind of run the fishing area there at Bass Pro Shops, and they've been supporting us all along. It's been good.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool, man. Yeah, there's a handful for us. There's a handful of fly shops here in Kansas City. There's 2 that I can speak of, one in Overland Park and another one in Independence. Yep. So Bass Pro is the other option, unless you're wanting to buy online, which is obviously a fantastic route to go as well.
Yep.
But having Bass Pro Shop literally in your backyard, the doors open up, especially for a bass fisherman like yourself and so many other people a part of your group.
Yeah. I know probably K&K Fly Fishers is the one you're probably talking about. I've driven by that many times. I've even actually stopped and went in that store a couple of times and never fly fished in my life. But I thought, man, I just want to go in and check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't realize crappie fishermen, a fly fishing store is their best friend for crappie jigs.
Yeah, no kidding.
You can make some great crappie jigs, and you can even get some really larger size hooks and some heavy weight, and you can make some killer bass lures that would be something you would traditionally see on a fly rod.
Yeah.
So expand your horizons, guys. Go and hit those fly shop guys will tell you what to put on a spinning reel.
Yep. Well, and I don't know, you guys. I don't know if you've ever heard of Crappie Kirby here locally. He's kind of a renowned crappie fisherman. He's a guide. He's actually also DJ Kirby. I don't know if you heard of him on one of the radio stations.
Yeah, I know that name.
Yeah. But Crappie Kirby and DJ Kirby, which I did not know initially were the same guy. And then finally you had one of those aha moments one day. And that's the same dude.
Did he drop a sponsorship in the middle of your conversation and that's how you knew?
No, I'd seen him. I went ahead and friended him on Facebook because he was going to be part of the group anyways. And not just his Crappie Kirby page, but his personal Facebook page. And I saw something about DJ Kirby on there and the radio station. Okay, I get it.
So it's not like you're in the middle of a conversation. He said, now for a break.
No, but man, there's I don't know, there's Austin Miller's a local guide, kind of multi-species. There's Brian Andrika. There's one of the other guys that works at Bass Pro Shops in the marine electronics department, but he ties his own jigs. One of the other guys he's a moderator, not an admin for the group, but his name's Chong, and he's a big time crappie fisherman. So I actually went crappie fishing with him last spring, and been the first time I actually targeted crappie in a long time.
Well, we're getting ready to hit crappie time down here in southeast Missouri. We're going to be warming up quick. Those water temperatures are going to get up to 55, 60 degrees. We're a month and a half away, man, and we're in prime crappie season.
Yep. Yeah. That's when we're getting the skinny water.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. I'm super excited to get my kayak out specifically for that. I just got that thing. I haven't even put it on the water yet, but I think crappie fishing is probably going to be the first thing that I do in some of the local water here, just to get familiar with it. And, Sean, we've talked about this quite a bit. You get out on the water in your kayak and all of a sudden everything's going wrong all at once. You're hooked into every lanyard and everything. So I figured local water, keep it shallow to your point, Van, and maybe I'll catch some crappie as a perk to it.
Yeah, and it's just like the guys that have a bass boat. I saw on your page somebody asked if there was any good kayak water or should he just buy another bass boat. And kayak water and bass water, as long as you're in a no wake zone or you're in a cove that's protected and you can get away from some of those boats, man, you can do it all. And you rig your kayak just like you'd rig a boat. If you don't want to lose it, you lash it down, you make sure you've got a knife with you to cut yourself free, and there's a lot of crossover. But fishing, like you said, fishing's fishing, man. It doesn't matter whether you're using a fly rod, a spinning rod, a bait caster. You're out there on the water. Everything just sort of melts away. And the only thing that's almost as fun as fishing is talking to your friends about what a great day you had. And the only thing more fun than fishing's out fishing your buddy.
Right.
Yes. Especially when they're with you and you can rub it in.
Yeah.
And that gets harder to do with, like my buddy Clayton I was telling about. I've known him since he was a kid. I actually almost, adopted him because I was used to be married and had 3 stepsons. They weren't really involved in fishing. And so I saw this kid fishing this little private lake all the time. And just one day I said, hey, I know your parents hang out there up at the restaurant. I said, go ask them if it's okay to hop on the back of my boat and I'll run the trolling motor. And we just became fishing buddies after that. I actually even introduced him to his wife, stuff like that. She was a daughter of some friends of mine. But man, that kid, he tries to give me credit sometimes for teaching him how to bass fish. I'm like, dude, you were pretty well versed when I met you, like when you were 10. But I said, you far surpassed anything that I've ever taught you. He's the fish magnet is one of his nicknames.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Well, I'm not taking him with me.
Oh,
Yeah.
he will embarrass you.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that can literally put fish in the boat when everybody else is striking out.
Yeah.
Most of the time, he'll find a way to get him because he's humble. He has no pride. He'll do whatever it takes.
You know, I've got a guy for him to talk to. I moonlight on another podcast called The Essential Outdoorsman. It's 19 Delta Bait with Jeff, and then it's Stacy Howell Fishing, and Stacy's a professional fisherman. Mm-hmm. And he's always said that'll make you humble real quick is when you have that name, professional fisherman, and you're not catching anything, you know. Yeah. So we'll have to get the two of them together for a little bit of a time down at Lake of the Ozarks or something.
That'd be cool. Heck, my buddy Brandon, the guy that taught me most of what I know, fishing behind him for several years, it made me get better because I got tired of getting skunked. He's putting 30, 50 fish in the boat and I'm getting nothing. And trying to fish behind him is like trying to fish behind somebody with a big old seine net.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, leave some of the good ones for me, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. So, Van, I assume, is it largemouth bass? Is that primarily what you're targeting when you like to go out and fish?
Yeah, primarily around here, it's the largemouth are a lot more prevalent. There's a few lakes like Perry, Wyandotte County, Melbourne that have smallmouth in it. Even what is that? Lake Shawnee out in Topeka has smallmouth in it, but
okay, yeah,
for the most part, mostly largies.
Yeah. See, I know most of the lakes here, so for people that are listening and here in obviously Kansas City, they'll know more about this than anything else. But I'm on the Kansas side, so that I've got all day long in terms of where it is geographically and how to get there. And I talk about crossing over to the Missouri side of Kansas City. I mean, that's just a whole new world of local fishing for us here in the metropolitan area. And I don't know anything about it other than the real big names you get further out like Truman and whatnot, but Smithville. Outside of that, where are some hot spots that you guys like to go? Maybe if you go out with Wes, take his bass boat, where are y'all headed?
Yeah, well, mostly I've fished with, since we're here, in Olathe, we're close to Olathe Lake and then Gardner Lake. And then of course, Melbourne for like smallies, stuff like that. But on the Missouri side, other than heading down to your Ozarks regions or up to Smithville, I mean, you get out towards like Independence, Blue Springs, Lee Summit area. There's what is it? Lake Jacomo and Prairie Lee and Blue Springs Lake are all kind of almost chained together, all three of them.
Okay.
Jacomo's probably one of the oldest ones, and I've fished it a few times, man. And there's some solid fish in that lake. They got like horsepower restrictions, and you got to have the boat permits and motor permits and all this, so it can get a little costly if you're non-resident. But good lake.
Yeah. That's one thing. Missouri. Well, a friend of mine just bought a motor for his kayak. And I looked at him, I said, dude, you've got to get that motor license. Now you've got to get that kayak license. That's a whole nother deal when you go into that. And going from state to state, they're not going to cut you any slack on that, I don't think. You've got to have all that stuff licensed. And that makes a big difference on where you're going to go and fish. You go to Arkansas, which is a long haul for you guys. Arkansas fishing license isn't that steep year round. I can get to Arkansas faster than I can some of the waters around here. And, it's not that bad. But, man, you go to Louisiana, if you're going to buy a 3-day fishing license, you might as well buy a year. Because if you decide to fish one extra day, it's going to cost you the same amount.
It was like that in Oklahoma. I went down there a couple of years ago with my buddy Brandon to fish a lake. And I think it was you had a 1-day or a 4-day or a year. Yeah. And the 4-day was, not that far off of what the year was.
Yeah. Last time I was down there, it was like $15 different, if that.
Yeah.
And we were there for 5 days, and it's like, well, just buy the year,
Although, you're not going back within the calendar year.
We got it. Anyway. We went back. We made our plan to go back the next year while our license was still good.
There you go. Yeah.
We got it by 2 days, man.
Yep.
But
that's right. And you guys are talking about having to like register like a kayak. I've got a little 2-man boat. Wouldn't have to register it except for I put electric trolling motor on it. Got to register it, pay taxes, all that good stuff. So
the minute you put a motor on it in Missouri, you've got, now if you put a pedal drive in it, no. And just paddling it, no. But man, you put a motor on that thing, any kind, and it's got to be registered if it's on public water. And it's a good thing for people to know when they're going out of state how to do that. And you really got to check your regulations because, you know, Missouri had a big issue for a while. It was cheaper to come over here and poach than it was to buy the tag.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys were doing that, and they finally upped it to where it's actually more expensive now to poach than to buy the tag. But, you know, the same thing. You can get away with it for a little while, but man, once they catch you, it'll ruin your day fast.
Yeah. Well, it's not even necessarily about being out of state or not. My dad has just a little 2-man John boat that he's had. He has the Minn Kota trolling motor on it. He's had for 25 years. I don't even know how that thing still works, but we'll take it out on any lake around here. But he's still got to tag that boat, and keep it registered and whatnot, even in the state of Kansas. So, to your point, Sean, it's good to know the state laws you're traveling to. I think there's probably a lot of assumptions for people out there. If you're a first-time boat owner or kayak owner or anything, you got to stop and really think about what you're in for in terms of tagging, keeping it legal, and keeping it up year after year.
And speaking of Oklahoma, up until about 6 years ago, you had to license a kayak.
Wow.
So you had to pay a tax on it and have your numbers on your kayak just like you would a boat. And they got rid. I saw some guys with some numbers, and I asked them, and they're like, well, this is from a couple of years ago. And they're like, they finally came off that. But yeah, I mean, you know, you never know from state to state what you can and can't do. And having a Facebook page like Average Joe's, you've got enough reach that people can reach out and say, hey, I'm going to go here. What do I need to have? Do I need a separate trout stamp? Do I need a separate, you know, this? What do I need to get if I want to fish here, here, and here? And that makes a huge amount of difference to have that social connection to reach out and ask those people.
And that is exactly one of the things that we do is, I mean, not only we want to share information like, you know, how to fish or whatever, a particular bait, or how to do a bait caster or fly rod or whatever, but even the different geographical areas. Hey, you never know when somebody's going to be, you know, maybe going somewhere on a business trip or a vacation, and hey, you know, help the fellow average Joe out while they're there. You know?
Let them know which boat ramp to put in at. Let them know where's a good place to fish. You know, you know, I know I practice catch and release. I saw you practice catch and release. So I figure you don't like Catholics since we meet fish on Friday with all those catch and release posts. But you know, I hope you're not an anti-Cathite there. But
no, I just eat sushi.
Tell you what, you and I are going to be good friends. But it's a great way to find out, you know, where can I fish? If I'm going to be in this hotel, where can I get to go fishing? And I've done that a lot through social media for work and stuff where I was traveling before. Be like, hey, and they're like, hey, pack up your rod and, you know, buy a license and you can fish 2 blocks from your hotel. Hey, good deal, you know.
We've even had guys offer like, hey, if you do happen to be in my area, look me up. I'll even take you out, you know, fishing.
That's great.
So,
I'm coming to Kansas City.
It's a brotherhood. I mean, we even got saltwater guys down in Florida and Texas and stuff that, I mean, and they're just as friendly and as helpful as anybody I've ever met, you know.
You got to watch out for those saltwater guys.
Yeah. It's a whole different world, even more so than fly fishing even. But there's a lot of fly fishing salt guys even.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to tell you what, that saltwater, I know that's on Adam's bucket list. I love it. I can't get enough of it.
Mine too.
Oh, man. I've got the places for you to go. And everywhere I take you, they were hitting yesterday.
Yeah. See, and that's what I've never actually gotten to do any saltwater fishing yet. So, I mean, my bucket list, first and foremost, is tarpon. That's my number one bucket list fish. But then, you know, I mean, a good giant snook, you know, heck of redfish.
Yeah, redfish are fun.
Bonefish, permit, you know, you name it, you know.
Yeah, we'll go back. We've got a couple of podcasts that we've done with some great guys, the saltwater specialists down there in the Orlando area. Man, they've got a really good deal, and they would put together a trip for the Average Joe's guys where you could get maybe 6 or 8 people at a time to go down there, and they even have their own lodging. Great place. That'd be a great thing. And you know what? If everybody would, hearing this show and everybody on Average Joe's would just send $1, the 3 of us and 2 of you could go on that trip.
I mean, I've had 2 different friends that have moved down to Florida this past year. And then, of course, with the Average Joe's things, just meeting several, online at this point, people that are in Florida. And then I've been a brand ambassador for Cast King for about 3 going on 4 years now. And some of the other brand ambassadors with Cast King are from down there. 2 of them are even captains, saltwater charters and stuff. So
cool.
Yeah. And, those kind of relationships, and talking about being an ambassador, we've got show sponsors, and we've got more guys than the show sponsors that really do a lot for us. We do a lot for them. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying they're just fawning over how great Adam and I are. We do a lot for them and things like that, but it's a responsibility that a lot of people don't understand, that it's not just getting a discount. You're out there and you're representing them, and you've got to put together a quality video if you're doing a video, a quality, show if you're putting, well, maybe not a quality podcast, but you've got to put together, you've got to give them a reason because that's their business. And a lot of folks don't understand that. What is it like with Cast King, working with those guys?
What I've learned with Cast King, and they use the term family, and I know a lot of companies use that term, but I mean, I tell you what, a very tight-knit, close group that does just about anything for anyone. And man, it's just the diversity of the group, because they could be fly fishermen, they're saltwater guys, they're walleye guys, and it's just like we're all, and just like the Average Joe's, it's fishing's fishing.
Yeah, I've never had Pablo refer to Adam where I want his family.
He won't claim us. He won't claim us.
He said we could sleep in the room with his cat.
Yeah, it's the best he gave us.
Yeah.
But have you ever noticed that most cat people really treat their cats better than humans? So that's a step up.
That's Pablo. I'm telling you right there. The Juco Flats Fly guys, Flyco, check it out, guys. Get you a fly rod, a spinning rod, saltwater rod, and say hi to the cat from Kayak
warmest
Flyer.
regards to the cat.
Yeah. Oh, man,
we always have to be ornery to Pablo. He's he's one of our favorite guys in the world, and he's so much fun, and he's really built a reputation about doing a lot of stuff for the outdoors conservation wise, and I know you guys do too at Average Joe's. You're really conservation oriented. Yep,
definitely. We want to it's the whole next generation angler thing is what we're aiming for, because we're not going to be here forever, so it's like we need to leave that next generation angler with as much as we can possibly share with them, and keep them involved in it and love the sport and want to get out there instead of sitting at home on an Xbox or something.
Yeah, we're big proponents of that too. We've talked about that. It's been probably several episodes ago now, but when both Sean and I, we're trying to get our kids into fishing and fly fishing, and it's important to pass that on just so that they're exposed to other things outside of, just to your point, outside of the technology and whatnot. So I love to hear that. I think that's great.
Travis Birch is one of my admins. He's the Kansas Youth Bass Nation president. He's the one that runs that whole program. And man, I tell you what he's doing, for the kids of Kansas, everywhere from the junior to the seniors. Of course, once they go into college, that's a whole nother program. But man, he's running a good show there. Awesome stuff he's doing.
That's cool. Yeah.
And college fishing and high school fishing clubs have really taken off.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Which it's like, where was it when I was a kid?
Yeah. There wasn't one when I was a kid, and I've got a friend of mine. He was in a college fishing league, and it wasn't a scholarship league or anything. And we're out fishing one day, And he's like, hey, you've heard of the Guggen Squad? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, I fished against those jokers. And he's like, and I just went to work and they just kept fishing,
Yeah.
and it's funny. I mean, but we so many times we poo-poo on kids' dreams. I know, I think it was Christine Fisher was on the show and she wanted to be a professional fisher, and her teacher sort of poo-pooed her idea. And here she's on the Hobie kayak tour, just killing it,
Right. Yeah.
Everybody knows who she is now.
Yeah. And she was on the podcast, and I'm like, what are you doing on here? Obviously, she didn't screen the show first.
Yeah.
But, getting the kids out there and passing that on, that's a huge thing. And I know, Adam, you and your oldest daughter, do a lot of fishing together.
Yeah, we do. And she was big into tying flies with me too there for a while. And she loves to get out there. She loves to be outside and just, I think that the nature's a big part of it for her, just to be out in the elements, and then fishing's kind of a bonus for her. And she always, every time she's out on the water, she always catches something. It does not matter if we're out there for 10 minutes, if we're out there for 10 hours, she's always catching. So she's doing something right, and I'll take full credit for that.
Yes.
I was going to ask if that's why her Instagram is more popular than yours.
I don't want to get it.
It's got more fish than yours has.
That's exactly right. I'm just going to start stealing her pictures and take credit for them.
Yeah.
So the Kansas City area, I've never really thought about that as being a hot spot for fishing. I'm a Southern boy. I do like your barbecue up there. I'm not sure if you guys have sweet tea or not.
We have sweet tea, but I've learned that most people misinterpret how to make sweet tea.
It should be equal parts sugar and water with a dash of tea.
Right. Yeah. And
that's the McDonald's version, where it's just pure corn syrup and maybe a splash of tea in it.
From the South, we call it Missouri wine, and it's my cousin always talks about my dad and his sweet tea, and he's like, when you can stand a spoon up in it, then it's good enough to drink. But you guys do have great barbecue up there, but I never really thought about it as being a fishing mecca. But the more I hear about it, the more it sounds like I'm going to have to come up there and go fishing one day.
Yeah. There's plenty of, like your either like community lakes, smaller city lakes, stuff like that in this area where there's pretty good fishing. I do like to, most times if I can, because there are so many fishermen in this city that a lot of these lakes get hammered. Especially you talk about COVID when it hit last year. Everybody can't go anywhere, so where do they go? They go fishing.
Right.
So that, which is good. That has increased the sport. There is people that have either never fished that started fishing. There's people that hadn't fished in decades and they got back into it.
Yep.
But it did create a lot of extra pressure. So most of the time I'm trying to drive hour and a half, 2 hours out just to get away from some of the pressure.
Yep. And ironically, that really kicked me in the rear end too, because a lot of folks, I would go to these stretches of water, you'd have to float 2 miles down to get to the good fishing. And then the big box store kayaks are, $150 or less. And all of a sudden I'm fishing and I've got a group of people floating by, And I think we've all sort of had to adapt. I know our buddy over at River Road Creations, he can't keep up with demand. There are so many things in a post-COVID world we're going to have to understand, and how many folks are going to like it and stay with it. And how many times are we going to find a really great deal this summer on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace for fishing gear? It's going to be one or the other, but when you're running the Facebook page like that, do you see, I don't know, I didn't check to see, do people post up stuff that they're selling or getting rid of, or is that a no-no on your site?
We've kind of made it a no-no on our site just for potential liability reasons.
Right.
It's one thing if you're posting something, this is brand new in a package. I just, poured my own worms or made my own bait or whatever, but I just didn't want to have to worry about trying to break up all the fighting and stuff like that could go on. You sold me a piece of junk and I want my money back, and stuff like that. So
and that was sort of my question, because the problem is, we were doing the Essential Outdoorsman the other night, and like somebody just kept spamming us with wanting to sell stuff, and it's a lot easier not to than to have to mess with it. And a lot of folks have really gotten that way, and I know a lot of folks don't want any advertisement on there for anything at all, and that's, I commend you for doing that, because there's a lot of folks that are out there that honestly are nice, and they're like, hey, I upgraded and I'm going to let this go, and it's a good thing, but you can't run the risk whenever your name's on it.
Yeah, like I said, if it's something new in the package, like there's a return or warranty type thing, and it's like, especially your own small business, because we do a thing on Saturdays, Small Business Saturday, where
I was going to ask you if you wanted to talk about that, because I not to interrupt you, but that's something I think is really cool. Is you give your members a platform to say, hey, look, let's support one another. Drop your your website right here. How you want to connect me for this? And I mean, I did that on this page this Saturday. I dropped my Etsy shop website. I'm like,
I saw it.
If you want some flies, you want to talk to me about it, let me know. So I think that's cool.
And then what I did initially was it kind of had to be fishing related. And then I thought, well, you know what? There's a lot of guys in this group that have a small family owned business that isn't necessarily a fishing related business, but it helps them pay for fishing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? If it helps support your family and your fishing on Saturdays, post it anyways. I don't care if you're painting houses or if you're a concrete guy or whatever. If that's what you're doing that helps support your family and fishing, then go ahead.
And with you guys, I know you're not a regional. I mean, obviously, because of the web, you're not regional, but there are a lot of posts about the Kansas City area. That's got to be a great way where, I can meet somebody and they have a service and I know them now. And that works out. And I think the web does a lot of great things, but it also does some really negative things by taking away that interaction. But now, was I wrong when I saw you guys have a club meeting once in a while?
Besides the Average Joe's Fishing Club, we are now actually officially going to start a BASS Bass Nation tournament trail. Good. So we're in the. I was working today on building up the schedule. I've already got 3 lakes and dates scheduled out for our first 3 tournaments. So
that's
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
What's your experience in fishing different tournaments, Van? How long have you been doing that?
Well, I've been tournament fishing kind of off and on over 25 years. There's limitations sometimes, money, stuff like that.
Right.
Just the small ones.
Especially when money burns holes through my pocket, so I can't ever save up enough to do the traveling for the thousands and thousands of dollar tournaments, But I fished, back in the day, it would have been late 90s, I think. I fished Heartland Pro-Am for like part of a season. That was, and my ex and I started having problems and we're getting ready to split up. So I wound up missing the other half of that season. But I'd fished a few local little club tournaments here. And so I've never ran one. So this is a whole new ball game for me.
Yeah. A few more details to keep track of, right?
Oh my God. If you've seen the stack of paperwork that you have to go through to be affiliated with, BASS, all the legal requirements and all, it's like, oh my God, all the legal mumbo jumbo speak and the paperwork. And I'm like, I just want to shoot my head.
Now, doesn't BASS have a kayak tournament too?
They now have a national kayak series. And I looked the other day because, and this is one of my Cash King brand ambassadors that's also in our group. And she's a fly fisherman, and so is her husband. But they also bass fish too. And they fish on a pretty competitive bass level. Well, now she is going to kayak Bass Nation thing this year. And you're talking $50,000. for a tournament for first place.
Yeah.
That's good money.
There's a lot of good money in that.
Yeah. No
I mean, that's good money for a bass boat, much less a kayak.
Yeah. You know, Adam, I want to jump in here real quick talking about bass fishing because, I mean, I bass fish at my local lakes. I grew up bass fishing, but it was at farm ponds that were stocked and had, decent fish, and we were catching grasshoppers in the field and throwing them out on the cane pole and this and that. And going back into spin fishing, I mean, I hadn't done that 20 years, and I started spin fishing again, and I'm looking at the shelves at my different stores that I've got around. I don't even know what to throw. I mean, lures have come so far and have changed so much, and soft plastics are so different with different scents and things like that. When you go out bass fishing, do you have a rotation of lures that you use? Do you have something for the time of year that you like? I mean, I know we've got bass fishermen that listen to this podcast, and we've got all kinds of folks because we have a pretty eclectic group on here. But what do you like for bass fishing? I know when I'm fishing the river, I'm using a Ned head or I'm using a crawfish soft plastic, and that's just what I'm doing going down the river. But lakes are not something I'm used to.
Yeah, if it's a lake that's pretty clear or pretty heavily pressured, that's where I'm going to pull out my my spinning rod, my finesse fish, 10-pound or less line, and throwing something like a Ned head or a shaky head, little 4-inch finesse worm on a shaky head or drop shot. But other than that, and I graduated obviously from a kid, cane pole, and then to the Zebco 33s, and I fished those all the way into my late teens, early 20s. And then I finally learned how to throw a spinning reel, and then I got fairly good at that, and then I finally decided I was going to take the leap and learn how to use a bait caster.
Yeah,
right.
And I tell you what, that was a learning curve. That took me a couple of months to really get it to where I had any kind of confidence in it. But now it's like, oh my God, the things I can do with a bait caster is just something you can't do with the other conventional tackle.
Yeah.
But man, I've definitely got my favorites. I mean, if we've got water above 54 degrees or so, I love throwing the new bladed jigs. Of course, brand name would be chatterbaits, but that's probably my favorite of all bait to throw. It's one that you can cast and reel. It's not one that you just got to sit there and wait and wait and wait. But I tell you what, there's nothing like, you were talking like the soft plastics. I mean, because everything from just a little chunk of plastic like a Ned to one that looks like a crawdad or a worm or a lizard or whatever, and getting that heavy flipping stick with like 20-pound test or even 50 or 65-pound braid, Texas rigging that plastic and flipping that into the heaviest, nasty looking cover you can find, and just ripping that fish out of there.
Yep. That's one thing I'm going to be trying to work with my son this year. He is learning how to use a bait caster. And we set up hula hoop. We started with hula hoops in the backyard and a heavy sinker. And we go, I'm here in the middle of town, but I'm a member of the Elks Lodge, and we've got a really nice lake. And he and I can get up at 7:00 in the morning, and we can be on the water by 7:30, and that's after we've already, brushed our teeth and went to the bathroom, And that's one thing I'm going to work with him on, is tossing some of that, because he'll go out there and he'll mess around with this or that, and he'll get hung up here or there, and he'll get bored, And he's not that old, but, it's one of those where if he can get a little bit more, I guess, rough with it, and not be breaking up or losing something. And, a Texas rig or Carolina rig probably be really good.
Yeah. Well, and you're talking about the hula hoop. That's the way, my buddy Brandon basically taught me. He got me a 5-gallon bucket, and you stand on that to emulate being up on the deck, above the water a little bit. And it's called the pitching motion, when you're pitching it underhanded like that. And he put, like a hula hoop out there at about 20 feet. And he said, now when you can pitch into that on a regular basis, you take a trash can lid from a 55-gallon drum.
Yeah.
And when you can get into that on a regular basis, he said, then you go down to the lid off of a 5-gallon bucket and you pitch into that until you can get it every time. And then he said, take the lid off of a 2-pound coffee can,
Yep.
pitch into that. And then he said, you'll know you're good when you can take a teacup and set that out there and pitch into that every time.
Yep.
And I tell you what, that guy, like I said, fishing behind him for so many years, it forced me to up my game, because if I wanted to catch fish, I had to improve behind that guy. He's good.
In a kayak,
you went from hula hoop to teacup in only like 30 minutes, right?
No, we're talking weeks, weeks and weeks.
Yeah, in a kayak, you can't, if you're not fat like me, you can stand up. If you're sitting down, you got to grab a hold of that behind the hook, not the hook, and bend that thing and launch it like a slingshot.
Yep. I've done that bank fishing. Like if you got a bunch of overgrown trees and stuff behind you when you're bank fishing, I'll just slingshot it out there.
Yeah. And there are so many different techniques. A good friend of mine I fish with all the time came up from Texas, and he didn't have any trees in his way. And I'm like, let me show you how to sidearm cast and how to roll cast.
Yeah.
Because, with a fly rod, you're not going to stand there in the pristine conditions like you've got down there, you know.
Too much cover around.
Yeah, as Adam said last show, the bobber trees are in bloom in the spring,
Yeah.
But it's
call them Christmas trees because they're all decorated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of great things guys can do in their own backyard when they can't get out. When you don't have 4 hours to go fishing, you've got 45 minutes. And you can sit there and you can tie a sinker on any one of your rods. You can, use your fly line without a hook. There are things you can do to practice your cast and get better so that you don't waste time on the water learning. And I know, Adam, you and I have talked about that extensively.
Yeah, we sure have. Yeah, anytime you have the environment to allow you to do that, take advantage of it, to your point, because then the better you are on the water, the more fish you're catching, the more fun it's going to be. That's just the simple truth of it.
Yeah. Well, that buddy that taught me, he was just like, hey, practice on your own time, not mine.
Yeah.
He was kind of hard like that. But like I said, it challenged me, because he's like, I don't want to have to go up in, if you get hung up on the bank, or if you get hung up down in the water, I don't want to have to go up in there to get you loose and ruin that water, because you're going to disturb that water and chase those fish off. So it really did force me to get more accurate with my cast. It forced me to get more proficient at working the lure and placements and stuff. So and a lot of that had to do with practicing at home.
Yeah. And that transitions all the way across. I've got a good friend of mine who was on the podcast a couple months ago, Chris Ellis. He fly fishes for tailing redfish. And before the show, we're talking about carp. It's the same thing. I mean, you've got to put that fly in front of them. And you can spook every fish in there by making a bad cast.
Yep.
And if you're going to spend that money to go out and do that and to go to those fishing places, you better be spending the time in your backyard or wherever you can to be placing, whether it's a fly rod, spinning reel, bait caster, cane pole, you better be out there making sure you know how to do it, because nothing ruins a day faster than watching a hole clear out.
Yeah, and practice makes perfect. And and you were talking about like tying on like a sinker or whatever to practice. And I just last week when I was at Bass Pro Shops, they actually make it's a little thing. It's about like this tall, kind of a teardrop shape that has a line tie on it, and it's plastic, like a rubber type plastic that's weighted. They make them in quarter, 3/8, and ½ ounce. It's called a casting plug or practice plug.
Yep.
And I had to buy some because since I had the elbow surgery, I'm going to have to get back into shape.
Yeah.
And I figured, now that we're out of the deep freeze that we were in this past couple of weeks, I'm going to have to start going outside, because I haven't fished since the weekend of Thanksgiving was the last time I fished.
Yeah.
And especially losing range of motion, losing arm strength and everything, I'm going to have to build it all back up and get back in the groove.
Yeah. And I fish I fish every week, multiple times in the summer.
Yep.
I don't like cold weather.
Me neither. I hate it.
I can't stand it. I've been trying to run away to Louisiana for so many years. It's not even funny. My Arkansas got snowed in like we did. I couldn't even get away down there. I don't like it. And so in the springtime, when it's, and like we talked with crappie is where I get back into my rhythm. I get back in. I mean, once trout's over and it's too cold to trout fish and things are iced over here, and I go down, I hit those, and that's mainly for practice. Saying, let's see if we've still got this, getting back into the rhythm of the rods that I'm using that year, and before I go on a saltwater trip, I bust out that 8 weight and that 10 weight, and I work on practicing with those for a good month. Whenever 45 minutes here, an hour there, work on practicing those big rods because I don't use them up here.
Yeah.
But by golly, if I'm going to pay $100 for a license to go fish, I'm going to be sure I can cast. And I don't think enough of us do that as practice.
Because you're talking about those big saltwater rods. Like that's a big difference between that and a little 2-weight or 3-weight.
Right? We got both of you talking real quick at the same time. Sorry about that.
No.
Oh no.
Go ahead, Van. Then we'll let Adam go.
Oh yeah. He says connection interruption, trying to reconnect for him on my screen.
Maybe that's why it did that then.
Yeah, but that's it's a big difference between those big saltwater rods and like a little 2 or 3 weight that you're casting for little brook trout or something.
Yeah, go ahead, Adam. You back with us now?
Yeah, I'm still here. It's funny. I can only hear you, Sean. Van's frozen on my screen, so I'm taking my cues from you right now.
Sorry about that. I'll go ahead and address each one of you to talk from now on. Go ahead, Adam.
I have no idea what he said, so I was just gonna comment on you were talking about the difference between getting warmed up with your 8 weight. So the 1 weight that you got from Pablo is certainly a completely different motion. You talk about being you're just sitting out the season, right? Like to Van's point, the deep freeze has kept us all sidelined. That's completely different than you're talking about, just different tools that you're using. You got to take the time to practice on it.
Yeah, and Adam, that 1 weight took me a while to get used to, having thrown mainly a 4 weight. I mainly threw a 6 weight, and then I dropped down to a 4 weight, and then I have a 2 weight. It's not as long as I like. And that 1 weight is totally new. And even every time I fished it, it takes me about 10 minutes to get settled back down into it. And back to Van, it's the exact thing he was saying. When you've got those big saltwater rods, and you've got your ultralight finesse rig for a nice river, or even a medium light throwing soft plastics in a lake, if you guys aren't working on your casts and working on your even in your backyard, just your casts. I'm not even talking about your retrieves. But Van, let me ask you this and find out how much of this is a topic on the page. I know there's a lot of fight about color versus presentation. Where do you stand on that?
I think that color comes into play probably even more often than some people would say, but the most important thing most of the time, those fish with their lateral lines and stuff like that, they can feel it. I've sat there and thrown a frog in water that looked like chocolate milk, and I've seen a fish come out of the water and hit that frog before it hits the water. Yeah. So they can see it. They can see it. Their eyesight's better than ours. They've got the lateral lines. So the main thing to me is more presentation. I definitely have favorite colors, but yeah.
I know Adam and I both have favorite colors too, but the more I fish, the more those lateral lines and that presentation is there. Mm-hmm. Adam, I know you tie a lot of flies up, and trout fishing, I know we're going to, back and forth here on this idea, but trout fishing, those waters are a lot clearer, but even having rubber legs and a lot of flash, a lot of flash, something bright that's going to catch them, Adam, how's your that? How are you on that with presentation versus color?
Yeah, I would probably, for trout fishing specifically, it's probably going to be about more the presentation. I mean, when you talk about a trout, they're spending literally every ounce of their energy is to sit there in that fast moving water. So they're not going out of their way necessarily. For most parts, you get like bull trout or bigger brown trout, they're going to be far more aggressive. But you're talking about a fish that spends all of its energy to just sit there in that moving water. They're not looking to move too far out of their way to go chase after something. So it needs to be presented directly to them at the right height in the column, in the water column. And I think, color flash is going to play into it a little bit, but they're not really looking to move a whole lot to expend that extra energy just to go chase something that might look a little bit different.
Yeah, so I think we're all really in agreement on that presentation and disruption of water because of the lateral lines on those fish. And I know a lot of people will swear, well, my brother-in-law is one of them. He's like, I only want to use a chartreuse, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, man, I'm not doubting that chartreuse, but you're only fishing on sunny days. You give me a day that's cloudy, I'm going to throw something black. And you give me a day that's sunny and I'm going to throw something white. And, there's shades of gray in there, but, Van, what are your go-to colors and your go-to color with a favorite bait for bass fishing?
Well, like you were saying, a lot of that's going to depend on whether it's, like cloudy or low light conditions, or if it's bright and sunny, as well as, is that water clear? Is it stained or is it muddy? If it's bright and sunny, I want to throw something that's, going to have some flash to it, some silver, some chrome, or even gold if the water's kind of muddy. If it's darker, cloudy, rainy, early morning, late evening, I want to get something that's got some black or some blue in it, something with that darker profile, maybe a little less flash if it's cloudy, and go more for like a chartreuse or like a Rayburn red or something like that that's going to stick out in the muddier water or in those times where there's low light. And that's more for like your moving baits. If I'm throwing a soft plastic, like Texas rig and Ned rig, shaky head, stuff like that, clear water, I typically want to go with something very natural colored, watermelon, green pumpkin, stuff like that.
Yeah, I've found that the natural colors work really well when you're throwing the soft plastics. Anything from a plum purple, peanut butter and jelly, to, like you said, the pumpkin and the watermelon, those all work really, really well. I know I tie flies in certain colors based off what I've caught fish with the Ned rig on in that same water. And that makes a huge difference. I tied 3 dozen green pumpkin of one of my best catching flies, and I tied 2 dozen in orange. And I'm fishing clean water for smallmouth bass and rivers. Not catching anything on that orange.
Yeah.
And it's the same fly, everything, every ounce of it's identical except for the color. And so there are times in that clean water where color will make a difference. But when you pick up the crawdads out of that water, they're not bright orange.
They're green.
Yeah, and I can go places where those crawfish are more orange, and I'm sure that other fly would work. But that has to be, for guys like you, a real issue when you're traveling, isn't it? Or
because you want to try and make sure you've got stuff that will cover all your bases. Us basket, we've got enough tackle, we can start our own tackle stores. And that's just it. I mean, if there's one thing that I think a lot of bass guys have learned from fly fishing guys, is because you guys had that term for a long time, match the hatch.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of bass guys have now learned to do, and especially regionally, is there shad in there, or is it gizzard shad, or is it threadfin shad? Is there, what color are the crawdads? What color are the bluegills, or do they have alewives or some of these other species, do they have trout, things like that.
Yeah. And that's one thing, I mean, to tie these over, I've found that, and I know I've talked to a lot of guys, but it was really funny. I was down fishing 2 years ago down in Arkansas, and it's a stream that you can fish whatever you want to, and it's got a limit on it. They're pellet pigs, as our friend Ben Tutt calls them. They're stocker trout, and I went down there, and I fished like I was fishing for smallmouth. So these guys are sitting on the bank, and they're throwing out power bait. I walk over, and my waiter's the other side of the river, and I start casting like on the rocks, like I would for largemouth or smallmouth, looking for those ambush fish. And I was amazed. And these guys, they started heckling me. They're like, "How are you catching them trout in those rocks? Don't you know they're all sitting down there in that fast water?" I'm like, when it comes down to it, a fish is a fish. And a predatory fish, any kind of fish that's eating anything that comes through the water like that, not a carp or anything, but, a good bass or trout, they're all going to hit off that same pattern. And we have, we call them goggle eye. Some people call them rock bass.
Yep.
And you're not going to catch a single one of them in the river unless you just float right up to that tree stump and drop that Ned rig straight, or whatever you're fishing with, a fly, straight up and down, and boom, you can catch 10 of them out of one stump.
Yep.
But it's where it's at, and you're putting stuff in right there, and understanding how they fish. And largemouth bass particularly, they're kind of interesting to me. I mean, they're not as angry as smallmouth bass.
No.
I mean, smallmouth bass, somebody got up and talked bad about their mama,
Yeah.
Largemouth bass, though, they're really, really reactionary from my experience. You get it over there and you just aggravate them. They're sort of like gar. You just really aggravate them and you're going to get a bite. What do you think about rattles? So do you like a crankbait or a rattle trap that's got some more noise to it? Or do you like some of the more silent baits when it comes to that? Because I've heard both these.
Yeah. Typically, it's going to be based on water clarity. The clearer the water, the more silent I want that bait. And the smaller I want that bait, and the more natural color I want that bait.
Yeah.
You start getting into the stain water, and then especially even towards your muddy chocolate milk water, the louder it is, and the brighter it is, or the darker it is, and then all that added in, it tends to, that way they can focus more so on their eyesight, they can focus more on their lateral line.
Yeah. So. You know what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do this for you guys, as long as he'll do it, I'm going to talk to Jeff Tatum down at 19 Delta Baits. And I'm going to see about getting him to give you guys either some soft plastics or something to auction off for a charity of your choice. How's that sound?
Oh, that'd be cool. I'm actually hoping on trying to get a benefit tournament. I did one last year. Actually, it would have been slightly a year before because it was late fall. I had a buddy that was a national walleye fisherman, Cabela's Walleye Pro Tour, that passed away. And I had known him and his ex-wife and their two sons, for many, many years. And unfortunately, he was good at his business of trim carpentry. He wasn't good at business in terms of life insurance or a will and things like that. So the two boys really got left with nothing. And they lost their dad that took them hunting and fishing and trapping and everything like that. So I did, I made a promise to the two boys that either me or like somebody in our group, Average Joes, would take them fishing or hunting when they want. But I wanted to do the benefit tournament to where all the, benefits, like the entry fees would all go towards them, but that they also get to fish in this benefit tournament for free. They get to hop on somebody's boat and fish for free.
Well, I'll talk to some of our great sponsors and see if we can't get something for you, or at least get you some giveaways to help support that, because we've got a lot of great sponsors. And I know Cutthroat Leader, I can throw a couple of leaders out just as a random door prize. And I know Jeff would be more than happy with that down at 19 Delta Baits. And I'm sure we can work something out with some of the other guys, because we've got a great group. And, you know, I that's one of the things about being a fisherman that, you know, you nailed it. It's somebody that, you know, you want to help out their family, you know. And Adam, I know you're right on board with that, about helping folks out when they're doing a tournament, for helping somebody out or helping out a great cause. And I know you do a lot of stuff like that too, Adam.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's fantastic, and I think any of those people you talked about in terms of our sponsors or other people will be happy to participate. I'd like to know. I'd ask Van maybe an opportunity to plug or talk about. He's wearing this sweet hat right now, which, if you haven't seen the logo for Average Joe's Fishing Club, when you go out on the Facebook page, you got to check it out. But you guys have some apparel out there, right? That you're selling for the good of the group. You want to take a chance to talk about that?
Van, did you get to hear what Adam said?
No, I haven't been able to.
Oh, okay. Well, you guys have. I'm recording just fine. Adam was asking about your sweet hat. This is the first time that's happened, by the way. Yeah. Adam was talking about your sweet hat and wanted to know if you want to talk about some of the awesome apparel you guys had and what you used the proceeds for.
Oh, yeah. I've been used a company based out of Texas called Zexus for a while to do like even this is a Nike Thermofit, you know, fleece or whatever, and these are embroidered, of course, but we've got, you know, silk screened, you know, like t-shirts and, you know, short and long sleeve stuff like that. But I got kind of tired of the lack of communication with a big company out of state, and I am in the process right now. I found out that one of my longtime friends, a guy I've known since third grade, has gotten into the apparel business, and we are working on getting all the designs down pat and getting he's going to have like an actual web link that you could go to and order the stuff. And it's he's come up with him and his wife come up with some really good stuff, and we're looking forward to it.
We were going to have apparel for the podcast, but they said we had to order 25 at a time, and that's 20 more than we would sell.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't exactly lit things on fire with sales yet, but you know, there's definitely some guys that are like, man, I want a hat, or I want a, you know, decal, or I want a, you know, hoodie or whatever. So
yeah,
I think that will grow with time, and definitely trying to use the proceeds to do something, you know, with Average Joe's. I mean, and like I said, we're still hemorrhaging money at this point. Nowhere near making any kind of a profit. But
all of our proceeds go to getting fishing lessons for Adam. I can say that because he doesn't know who's talking. Oh, no, I'm kidding. Adam is a great fish. Adam, with the time Adam and I went fishing together, he outfished me, so I can't say a word about it.
Lessons are paying off, brother.
Yeah, those lessons are paying off. That's exactly right. Guys, I'm going to tell you what, this has been a hoot, and it's even been more fun since you can't hear what bad things the other ones say about the other one. It's going to be a surprise for both of you on the other end.
Yeah, I got to take all the bad things I said back now.
Yeah, now you do. Guys, this has been great. Check out Average Joe's. You can find Average Joe's Fishing on Facebook. Guys, check them out. Check out that tournament they're going to do. That's going to be for a great cause. If you're in the Kansas City area, hell, if you're in the South Carolina area or South Dakota area, check them out. You know, give these guys a look up, check them out. And hey, if you're a fan of them already and you're hearing this podcast, do me a favor, give us a 5-star review. You can leave whatever nasty comment you want, because all it picks up on is that 5 stars. And we're doing a giveaway tonight with Cutthroat Leader. Cutthroat Leaders, we've got a giveaway. I'm going to be sending some leaders to Adam. and he can get those to Van or whatever he wants to do. But comment on the Average Joe's Fishing Facebook and just let them know what you thought of the show. And I'll let them figure out how somebody's going to win. Maybe put a Yes I Fly Fish in there. That way you can get a leader. If you don't fly fish, don't put it down. Adam will take it back and use it. I know how he is. But definitely check that out. And for the rest of you guys this week, go ahead and let us know what your favorite Facebook fishing group is. And go ahead and tag that on the post that this YouTube link is to. Or if you're listening to the podcast audio only, send us an email, kayakflyerpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what your favorite social media group is, and we'll take a random person out of one of those, and we'll send you a free cutthroat furled leader. Guys, this is Sean. Adam, you want to say goodnight?
Good night.
Van, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks both of you guys. This was actually really fun. I was kind of almost dreading it because I'm not a kayak fisherman. I'm not a fly fisherman, but this has been great. You guys are good.
Fishing is fishing, and Van, you're welcome back anytime you want to, and you can bring a guest. We're really thinking about going back to audio only. If you watch these videos, let us know if they add anything. Otherwise, we're going to be switching back to audio only before too long. So just throwing that out there to let you guys know. Take it easy. I wish everybody a tight line.